How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brown Logan, and today we got to talk about this video from this guy. I think his name is Trae Crowder. He brands himself as like a redneck liberal, like a comedian slash actor. He's from somewhere around here. I live in Tennessee. I think he's from Kentucky or somewhere. I'm not really sure. But he's now living out there in Los Angeles. He's doing stuff with MTV, with our dear friend Francesca Ramsey and other people. And he had this video on Facebook that I came across, and I had to do a video about it because it really kind of triggered me a little bit, not in the snowflake sense, of course, but just in a way of I need to do a video about it because this is really some misinformation. And you see the freeze frame over here. This is what I'm looking at right over here. You see the freeze frame where it says unskilled labor is a BS term. We're going to start from the beginning so you can see what it says in its entirety. And we're going to break it down bit by bit, piece by piece to tell you what's really going on. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Unskilled labor is a bull term that's meant to make people feel like they don't deserve fair pay.
Deserve feelings? What are you talking about? I mean, what does that got to do with anything? When you're talking about money, when you're talking about people being able to go out there and earn a living, feelings and how I deserve don't really play in the whole equation. It's all about just what is and what isn't, and that's it. But let's see what you have to say for the rest of the video here.
Or benefits. Well, to hell with that. All labor is skilled labor.
All labor is skilled labor, huh? Is that what you think? So you think that somebody flipping the burger is the same thing as a doctor performing open heart surgery? Some labor is skilled, some labor is not skilled. Let's say that's a bad example. Talking about the doctor, you could say that's not necessarily labor, even though it is, but I digress. Let's talk about people that are welders, right? And you go from place to place and you perform welds. You do your welds on equipment, heavy equipment or whatever it is, versus flipping the burger, versus dipping some fries into some grease and serving them to some customers for whatever kind of money you make per hour. How can you say that they're both skilled? They're not skilled. Flipping the burger is not skilled labor. But I want to see how you really break this down and what you think about what I said.
In this country, you're not paid based on the skills that you have. If that were the case, the Kardashians wouldn't have a fleet of Maseratis. No, in America, you're paid based on what you can bargain for. Okay, now, he's about to get into unions right here, spoiler alert. But one thing he's missing, one thing he failed to mention right there in that little piece of video that I played is a thing called leverage, right? You got to have leverage. If you don't have leverage, you're not really going to be able to get what you think that you deserve. Okay. And what's going to give you leverage? Leverage is your skill. Leverage is whatever people want you for, being in demand. What makes you in demand? In the case of the Kardashians, she had this sex tape that came out. She was the big name because I think it was her father. He was involved with the OJ case. And then you had Bruce Jenner involved with the whole situation. He was an Olympian. And then you had Ray J. He was a big name. He was on television. His sister, Brandy, is probably one of the biggest R&B stars of all time. You had famous people that were involved with it. And they took that attention and kept building upon it. They compounded the attention that they were getting to the point where demand for them became very great. And now you have the Kardashian empire, right? They are basically masters at getting attention and getting people to want to know what's going on with their life. That attention, that audience is attractive to advertisers, to television programs, to movies or whatever. So you have a bidding war going on for the right to be able to be associated with their brand, so that the people that have brands, your advertisers or whatever, are able to get more eyes on their product, which makes them more money. The Kardashians have leverage to be able to get the money that they want. That's why they have the Maseratis or whatever. That's what that is. Okay. So it's not even about necessarily skill. When you're talking about skill, that's about labor where you're getting paid from somebody to do it. Some blue collar type stuff. That's where the skill comes in, or even white collar. When you're talking about, like I said before, about a doctor, you being a skilled open heart surgeon or whatever the case may be, you're going to demand higher pay based on the fact that you have the skill that you're able to leverage for the higher pay. So that's what that is. But let's see what it says about unions and how they are really behind people getting more money. And for decades now, American workers haven't had the bargaining power that they used to. You know those old factory jobs that people love to romanticize? You know, back in my day, a man could work on the floor and still afford to have a house and 2 cars and a general disregard for the rights of others, whatever. The people that did those jobs weren't treated well because of the skills they had. They were treated well because they demanded it. How? One word: unions.
Now, I'm not going to totally trash unions here. You have some good unions, but at the end of the day, what unions do is they jack up the cost of the goods they sell to the actual consumer. Okay, that's kind of what killed Detroit. There's other things that killed Detroit as well, but sometimes you have unions that overreach, and sometimes you're not able to get into the unions even if you have skill necessary to do the job. I've heard that sometimes unions can be racist. And sometimes if you can't get into the union, if you're not union, you're denied work altogether. That's why they have a thing called right to work states, where you don't have to join a union and pay dues to be able to work. Sometimes you want to join the union and you can't. So it's a prohibitive thing at times. Now, some unions may have given higher pay, but like I said, at what cost? What is the actual cost of that? And you also got to think about factory work. Over the past 50 or so years, what has also been a contributing factor into factory work in USA declining. You're talking about overseas competition. There are no unions and any of that stuff going on, so they could just ship stuff over here on a cargo boat for a fraction of the cost that it costs to produce even over here, let alone sell. So we're talking about globalization and stuff like that. I'm sure this guy who is a liberal from his own mouth would be all in favor of globalization, all in favor of the dreamers. But then at the same time, the lifestyle which you're talking about, which used to exist, does not exist anymore, partly because of what you're promoting. But I digress.
Unions are the backbone of the American middle class, and yet since 1983, union membership has been cut in half. And guess what? Wages have fallen right alongside it. American workers could be making on average about $3,100 more per year if union membership had stayed steady.
Okay, then we're talking about the money that they could be making more per year, $3,100 more. Now, what kind of economy is that in? Because like I said, many of the unions jack the cost up of produced goods. So if the economy costs more to be able to participate in, how much would that money actually be? You see what I'm saying? You got to put things in proper context. You can just rattle off these numbers. You've probably been fed by somebody, but you got to be able to understand what they really mean. You can't just put them out there and say, okay, you're going to be this much richer. No, you got to look at the whole situation. What would the economy be like in the USA as far as any kind of barriers to entry for the average person to be able to go shopping? The average person is having difficulty with money right now. Many Americans can't even go shopping. So what would that be if you had unions that were still the dominant force as of right now in 2018, when we're dealing with a world that's interconnected through the internet and through quick travel through water and air and also rail and car, trucks, or whatever.
See, this is why it doesn't make any sense when Donald Trump talks about reopening coal mines and old school factories. We shouldn't be focused on bringing back the jobs that gave people black lungs and broken backs.
Okay, so on one hand, you're saying that we shouldn't focus on bringing back the jobs that brought black lung broken backs. But on the other hand, you're saying we need the unions to make sure that those jobs you're talking about in a negative way get paid a so-called fair wage. And what is a fair wage anyway? What does a living wage even mean? It makes no sense. Like, I have a certain lifestyle. I have certain responsibilities I got to take care of as myself. But my next door neighbor may have a totally different life. He may have children. He may have debt. He may have all kind of stuff going on that I don't have. So the money that he needs for a so-called living wage, a fair wage, or whatever he thinks it is night and day from what I need based upon our life decisions, our lifestyle, or whatever the case may be.
We should be focused on bringing back the things that those jobs used to offer. Fair pay, overtime, pension, health insurance. Because, see, the coal miners of yesterday are the retail workers and fast food workers of today.
Okay, now this guy, you hear his accent, you know, you're thinking, okay, he knows what he's talking about. But just because you have an accent doesn't mean you're knowledgeable about a certain place. You know, I was born in Rand, West Virginia. Shout out to Randy Moss making the Hall of Fame, but I digress for now. I know about coal miners, you know. People in my family, you know, grandfather, great-grandfather, they were involved with coal mining. I think my great-grandfather did coal mining for like 20 years. So I know about the whole coal mining situation. The problem with the coal mining jobs And why we're trying to bring them back is because Obama and the EPA closed many of the coal mines down due to environmental regulations. It wasn't about nothing else. It was about they did not want coal to exist. They want to focus on clean energy and stuff like that, which only accounts for like a fraction of a percent of our total energy grid. Most energy is still produced by coal. If not, I think fracking may have overtaken it by like 1%. But fracking is much more dangerous than coal is. Maybe not for the person that has to extract it from the ground, but for people to have to drink the water that is close to the fracking site, it is very dangerous because they put all kind of chemicals into water. They pump that into the ground to extract the natural gas from the ground, from the shale rock. They got to crack the rock with water and chemicals. So that whole process many times leaves a layer of water on the topsoil, which gets into the well water, which many people drink, which you may drink, liberal redneck, but maybe not anymore because you're out there in California. But I move on.
Flipping your burgers, or bagging your groceries, or making your little coffee art and all kinds of stuff. But they don't have the same power to bargain for benefits that people used to have.
So I'm gonna just leave it right there, over here on this freeze frame. This guy is not really informed about what he's talking about. What I think is happening here is that he's been fed a bunch of this information by people that he works for, or people that work for him, or whatever the case may be. And he's just spewing it out there in a sort of impassioned way, but he doesn't really understand what he's talking about. Unions are not all bad, but unions are not all good. At the end of the day, what unions do is they jack up the cost of goods, especially in relation to goods that come from foreign places. You're talking about cars, Japan, Germany. Like, they are the dominant force, especially Japan. You're talking about Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Mazda. All these cars are the dominant thing over Ford, Chevy, etc. I think Ford only dominates in the F-150, but beyond that, just a regular everyday consumer car, that's Japanese cars all day long. And wait till China gets into the U.S. market with their cars. I heard that they're going to have an electric car coming from China that costs 20 grand. I mean, how can we compete with that? We have all these laws, all these union laws, all these labor laws. How can we compete with that? And then beyond that, the quality of the American vehicle has declined for many reasons. I think because of the educational system. There's just other things we got to fix in the USA other than trying to get so-called fair pay, living wages or whatever. These things that don't make any sense. These buzzwords people hear to make them feel good. And at the end of the day, you should be more focused on capitalism than communism, because I'm kind of getting that vibe from him. He's more of a communist. He thinks that the government should make rules that set prices at a certain level. That's not how it works. You got to look at the free market. If you really want to improve the economy, as I close, you should be looking at being less of a globalist and more of a nationalist, right? That's why Trump put tariffs on goods that come from China. You're talking about the steel, solar panels, washing machines, stuff like that, because once you have those goods in our market, it brings the market down. If you can just have American stuff be here, then we could compete a little bit better. It's easier for us to compete when we don't have to be worried about China and stuff like that. Compete with each other rather than competing with China. Okay, so that right there would help boost wages. Also, taxes, reducing that. We've seen how that has helped to boost wages as well. So there are ways to achieve what you want, or at least get close to it, rather than just saying, okay, government, let the unions be able to keep people out of the market as far as the labor market, if they so desire, and also allow them to make people pay to be able to work, just so you are going to have a so-called living wage. But that's pretty much all I got. What do you think? Do you think that this guy, Trae Crowder, do you think he's on point with what he said? Do you think that his whole argument was sound and totally cogent? Or do you think that it was not a sound argument? It was not a cogent argument? Do you think there was many holes in it? As I close, I want to say this. I want to repeat myself to reiterate the fact. The key thing he's missing is leverage. Okay. When you're talking about business, when you're talking about money, this is what I know. I don't know about him. Maybe he's a comedian or whatever it is, but I know about business. I know about money. I know that you got to have leverage. If you don't have leverage, you don't really have a leg to stand on. If you are a fast food worker, been in the same spot for like 8 years flipping burgers, and you go to your boss and say, can I get a raise? What is your leverage? Your seniority? It doesn't even really matter. You can be replaced with a machine coming up here pretty soon. And if not a machine, a human being that'll work for less. There's a lot of people out there that are very desperate that will take these low skill jobs. And the reason why the term low skill job is used is because it does not take skill to do it. Any person that is of halfway sound mind can go into a McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, or whatever, be trained on the grill and be expert at it in a week. But when you're talking about welding, plumbing, HVAC, auto repair, stuff like that, these are skilled labor jobs. When you're talking about manufacturing jobs that require computer use, these things are skilled jobs. You got to go to school, spend money, maybe even get in debt, become educated on it, and then go out there and exercise your skill. Okay, so that's the difference between skilled labor and unskilled labor. There is a difference, and the term is not BS. But whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.